Have you got enough light on me there?
Yeah, you're fine, yeah. Come join in or ask the question here.
On time for one.
I know, it's rare, isn't it? Like, I feel like Instagram hasn't told anyone else that we're live yet, but it says it's doing it, so.
Nice.
Right, I was just tweeting about it, so other people. I think, we're competing with major events this week, so.
Are we?
Well, the world being on fire.
Oh, well, I just ignore that.
Yeah, I know, but I think it probably makes it harder to get people to come and...
I've got a soda siphon. I just squirt it on it when it happens,
Is Ziggy with you? I see she is. I can see the bit of... Yeah, hello. Hello, Ziggy.
Got it back to me at the moment.
Yeah, doing important dog business.
Yeah, licking stuff that needs licking, that
yeah.
sort of thing.
Okay. Okie dokie.
I had some of my rocket from the garden for tea.
Oh, yeah, how was that?
Splendid.
Oh, good.
Splendid.
Good.
Yeah.
Right, then. Well, we'll just get started talking, and some people will come in, or they won't, but even if they don't, we'll have our video about this, which is good.
Okay.
So I guess let's talk about getting a dog from a rescue centre for the first time. So in a forthcoming episode, we'll talk about what to do when you're introducing a dog into a household where there are already dogs. But let's talk about, you're someone who maybe has had dogs in the past or hasn't had dogs, but this is your first time getting a rescue dog from a rescue centre. Where do we start?
Right. Good question, that, Mike. The first thing you start is with your home and your way of life. So you've got to decide what type of dog will fit in with your environment. I would say resist trying to get a dog if you don't have some sort of a garden. I wouldn't not get a dog if you work or you and your partner work. My first dog, Honey, we got when your mother was working part-time and I was working full-time and I was on the road.
Yeah.
As long as your dog is not going to suffer for the fact you're not there all the time, or are away occasionally. I've lost you, Mike.
No, you haven't. It's all right. I just pressed the wrong button while I was working with. Hi, thanks for joining us, Positive Canine Behaviour.
Okay, so really, if you decide that your home and your work environment allow you to have a dog, the next step is to decide where to find your dog, your rescue dog. So go to only recognised rescue charities. Resist rescuing a dog via online or Craigslist or wherever else, or Facebook. Go to a recognised centre that have taken a dog in for rehoming. Find out as much about the dog as you possibly can. Here's the first thing to point out. You're never going to find out every bit of information, and you're never going to really fully understand the dog until you've got it home.
Well, very often the rescue centres have a very partial picture of where the dog has come from.
Yes. So just keep that in mind. And I'd also strongly suggest when you are going to rescue a dog, resist the temptation to have in your mind, I've got to have this type or that breed. Okay. Go there with a very open mind that basically just says, I want to rescue a dog and give it a home.
Yeah, I'd offer up a caveat which you can agree or disagree with, but I would say I don't think it's unreasonable to say, have a sense that you might feel, say you're quite a small person, right? You might feel that you would be better off with a smaller dog. That's okay. It's okay to think that a bit, but also be aware that when you get to the rescue centre, you could end up leaving with a bigger dog because you just connect with that dog. But it's not bad to have a think about. I think thinking about breeds is bad, but I think thinking about energy levels, size of dog, that kind of thing is important, because
Yes.
although you might have the right space and whatever, think about what level of walking, what level of food. I mean, you know, like for instance, a St. Bernard eats a lot of food, doesn't it? Like there are some dogs that are going to cost you more money for various reasons as well.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and they're very good points. And of course, when you talk about the type of dog, some dogs. First point to make is that all dogs need exercise. It's a bit of a misnomer when people say, "Oh, well, greyhounds don't really need much. They have a little bit and they lie down all day." Well, they kind of do, but all dogs need decent amounts of exercise. So even before you get to the rescue centre, um, you have to be sure that you can commit the right amount of time to give the dog what it needs. Okay. So what you just said, Mike, about the different sizes and whatever, that's a good point. Even if you've got a small garden, but your place is fairly small, yeah, you don't want a Saint Bernard or one of the giant breeds. So you've
Yeah,
got to
because
find.
even if you can take them out for walks a lot, they
Yeah,
just exist in a lot of space.
yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Yeah. So you've got in mind the type of dog or size-ish of a dog you want. Then the next step basically is to go to the various rescue centres and have a look around and look for the dog that feels right. And we've rescued here, I think, about 6 dogs in total so far over the
Yeah.
years. And each time you kind of just knew that that's the right dog for you.
Hi, hi to anyone who's joined since we started talking. What we're talking about today is getting your first dog from a rescue centre and how that works. So where we're up to is you're at the point of going to the rescue centre and having an open mind.
Right. So okay, we've got there. We found a dog or two that may fit your particular bill. Now, any decent rescue centre, the next thing you'll do is you'll take the little dog for a walk around the rescue centre or outside if it's appropriate. And if that goes well, then the next step is going to be a home visit, or it should be a home visit, where they'll come and.
There's a point I want to make about when you're at the rescue centre, and I'm sure you'll have a follow-up on this, but dogs are really at a high key often when they're in a rescue centre. Like you'll experience a dog probably perhaps at its most nervous, so you should factor that in a little bit.
That's actually a top point, Mike. In fact, I go a little bit further than that. I'd agree with that entirely. I actually don't think you ever see the real dog at a rescue centre. You see the partial dog, if you like. When you bring a dog home, it's a bit like unpeeling an onion, if you like. They have layers, and you'll find that their behaviours come out over a period of time you have them.
And also, so when you almost see their shoulders relax. You do, like once they are in a quieter environment, you just see them relax, and you'll see their personality come out a bit. So that's just worth remembering. By the way, that's not to do down rescue centres. It's just very hard. If you've got a lot of dogs in one space, the thing about a rescue centre, if you've never been to one, is there's a lot of barking. There's a lot of barking because one dog starts and then it's,
Well, let me give you an example how stressed dogs become in rescue centres, and they all do. And most dogs, to be fair, don't really like kennels either, because of Mike's point there. They're very noisy, stressful environments. I'll give you an example. We rescued a dog a good few years ago called Bert. Now, Mike grew up with Bert. Now, Bert had been stuck in a rescue centre in Wood Green in Huntington, and he'd been in there for months and months. And he eventually came to us, and he settled down with us. Great. Now, this is way before I retrained as a behaviourist, by the way, but even so, I should have known better. We rescued another dog, which was a Dalmatian who needed a home. We were her 4th home in 3 years, so we rescued this beautiful Dalmatian. However, I made the mistake of, I'll take Bert with me. So Bert was in the back of my car, and we parked up outside the rescue centre, it's Wood Green, and I left Bert in the car, nice and chilled, and I went in to get the Dalmatian. And I was in there for no more than 5-10 minutes maximum, doing the paperwork and getting the Dally out. By the time I got back into my car, fortunately it was a bit of an old wreck of a car, one of my dogmobiles. I got in, and the stress of being just in the proximity of the rescue centre, where he'd spent a lot of his time and he could hear the barking and the dogs, he destroyed all of the seatbelts in the car. He chewed through a lot of them. And that was just distress. So Mike makes a very valid point. You rarely see the dog you're going to get home. And the dog you do get home, once you've given it time, you'll find the real dog comes out, and it can take months. It can take actually months. Okay, so...
And now, well, here's the thing we need to talk about, right? Which is sort of prior. So, let's say you're getting the dog, right? You've done the stuff with the thing. You're definitely getting the dog. You're going to go and pick up the dog.
Yeah.
You need to think about your home and the way your home is set up, in the sense of, the way I always think of it is a bit like, how you think of a home when you're bringing a toddler in, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
So talk about that a bit.
Yeah, no, you're right. Let me just before I go into that, because there's something you've got to be aware of before you even get into that. You've got to be cognizant as much as possible, and as much as the rescue centre can actually tell you, about the background of the dog. Okay, so some of these dogs might have been on the street. Some of them might have been abused in some way. Some of them might have been hit by women or by men, or abused by children. We don't know. So you have to bear that in mind. So they're going to come from an environment where they're used to certain stuff happening to them, and they're going to come into a brand new place, which is quite frightening for dogs. There aren't many dogs that can just walk into home, settle down on the sofa, and they're fine. Okay, so you've got to make your home as welcoming as possible for your new dog. So of course your garden should be relatively dog proof, i.e. they can't escape easily, because some of them will try to get out if they can. And your home needs to be as calm a relaxed environment as you can possibly have it. Okay, so if you've got children, you've got to make sure that the children understand what's coming into their home and what you expect of them as well. So it needs to be a fairly calm environment. Make sure you've got at least one good spot, that is the dogs, where it can go and lie and be at peace, if you like, away from the normal hubbub of life. And just when you bring a dog home for the first time, just be aware it's a brand new environment. It's potentially quite worrying for them. So don't be surprised if they do some stuff that you're not too happy with. They might mess themselves in the house for the first time they walk into it. They might try and choose something. You don't know. They might be perfectly fine. But just be aware that there might be the odd behaviour. I'll give you an example. I'll go back to Bert again. When I brought Bert home, and he'd been on the street for quite a few years as well, I think. When I brought him home, we had him for about a day, and he was fine. He was settling in, fine. And I thought, well, I'll have a little game with Bert. So I got an empty kitchen roll, just the old cardboard. I said, come on then, Bert. And I might as well have been wielding a baseball bat. And he was petrified. And he would be worried if we raised our voice, if we were having a particularly strident conversation, or if I was in the kitchen complaining about what I was doing. So he probably came from a home that had some sort of strife and some sort of aggression in the home. So just be aware, you're never quite sure what you're going to get. But trust me, and this is really important, they are all worth the effort. They're no different to any other dog, be it a puppy. They're worth the effort, and they will give you an awful lot if you take
and in many ways, a rescue dog is easier than a puppy. If you've got a rescue dog that's already, for instance, toilet trained, right, which they usually are, then that's a lot easier than a puppy.
Well, let me put it this way, Mike.
Just wait a second. I just mean in that respect, because that is really hard. Training a puppy to go where you need it to go is kind of like training a kid to do potty training. It's a bit of a it's a hard task, and there's a lot of fluids involved.
Well, yeah, it is to a point, but the point is that quite a lot of people labour under the miscomprehension, really, that rescue dogs are somehow much more difficult than going and getting a puppy. They're not. They're no different
Well, this
at all.
is the point I was just making.
No, I'm just supporting him, Mike. They're puppies have their own challenges. All dogs do, and so do rescue dogs. You shouldn't be put off considering a rescue dog because you think they're going to be a bit harder than a puppy. Because trust me, they won't. They will have. Some of them will be perfectly fine, and some of them will have issues. But again, I'll say it a lot. But I will do because of what I do. Make sure you get good advice, even if you have had dogs before. I've met lots of people that have had dogs before. They've got a rescue dog. You're rather surprised they can't understand this dog. Nothing wrong with that, but don't think that just because you've had a dog before, that having a rescue dog is going to be a walk in the park. Just be aware of it. That's all.
There are some basic practical things to take into account as well, like having a ton of covers is useful.
Yes.
Like just having a ton of covers that you can put on your sofas or put on your beds, because dogs are going to want to get up on those sofas, and people will give you this guff about we never let our dogs up on the sofa, right? I don't believe them. I don't think
I do, Mike. Trust me.
Yeah. Well, what I mean is there's two types of people, right? People who are treating their dogs in a way I don't like, or people who are liars when they say that, right? There's only two types.
I think that's a bit harsh, but
no, it's not harsh. No, Dad, wait, because what I'm saying is they're actually much nicer to their dogs, but they're just pretending they don't let their dogs up because they think people will judge it. And the reality is, most people who love their dogs, they start with this intention that dogs will never be up on the furniture, and it doesn't last. Because you love them, and then you end up being like, oh, well, come up on the sofa because it's really nice to, they like to be close to you. So the solution is have plenty of covers because they're easily washed and your sofas are fine.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
You've got leather sofas, and they're not all scratched up and messed up, particularly.
They're no longer covered, and Ziggy has Ziggy, who is really very stressed out.
Ziggy.
Very stressed out this evening.
Well, they were covered for a long time, and
no, they were. No, and I'm taking the mickey a little bit, Mike. Yeah, you are right, and it's just common sense. It's common sense,
But having plenty of covers and having plenty of towels is just the old towels that you can use with dogs. It's just very practical, useful thing to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have more than one water bowl so you can take it out with you when you go on walks. There's, a lot of these things that are just basic things,
I've got a dog 101.
Yeah. But I've seen people not do that.
Yeah.
If anyone has a question, we've only got like 3 or 4 people watching at the moment, but that's fine. We're in a tricky week this week, and I think this will be useful for people watching back afterwards. But if anyone has a question, do let us know. But I think that's like the sort of core basics with bringing a dog back that's a rescue dog. And like you say, here's the thing that we need to talk about, and this is good for people generally, but we haven't talked about recall, and that should be our second topic this week.
Okay.
Which you're gonna need to teach a dog if you bring a rescue dog back anyway. So
I think we'll have to have a one session on this where we talk about deference and relaxation and stuff like that, probably just as a single topic. But recall is very important. It's all very well having your dog sit, stay, roll over on its belly, give you its paw, etc. But the single most important command, in my opinion, is recall. So when you're out and about, you want to be pretty certain your dog's going to come back to you when you ask it to or tell it to. Now, dogs are like us. They're never going to get it 100% right, and they're always going to make mistakes occasionally. But you want the 99% of it, not the 1% where they get it wrong. So do you want me to run through how to do recall, Mike?
Yeah, if you can keep it relatively short.
Right, okay. Recall is a fundamental thing, and it's basic. It's not hard to teach a dog recall, and you can teach virtually any dog recall. I've got dogs recalling after 5 minutes out in the park. They've never done it before. It's not difficult. So it's easier if there's two of you, but you can do it if there's one of you. But you can only do it if there's one of you if you've already taught the dog to sit and stay. But let's assume there's two of you. Right. So the first thing you do, you get the dog sat next to one person, okay? And imagine that's a gap between the people, and that gap is about 3 or 4 foot maximum. So you've got the dog this side sitting, you've got the other person here standing. This person recalls the dog from here that huge distance, okay? And as soon as the dog comes to that person, it
Say
gets
what the recalling is. You say come.
Yeah, whatever you call the dog
whatever
name.
you want.
Yeah. I tend to use the word come, but you can use whatever command you want. But the key is you must be consistent with it. If you settle on a word, you always use that word. Okay, so the dog comes over the short distance. This person makes a huge fuss, gives the dog a treat, sits it down. This person has now taken a step back. So now we've got a bigger gap. And you repeat. So you play shuttle with the dog, backwards and forwards. So the dog's sitting here. This person now calls the dog back. Back it comes. Same thing. Big fuss. Dog sits. Has a treat. Dog sits. Other person takes a step back. So depending how big your garden is, you'll find that you get quite a distance fairly quickly. And you play shuttle with the dog. But don't do it for too long. 5-10 minutes maximum. About 5 minutes doing this. It's got to be fun for the dog, and dogs like to play shuttle. So you do that. You've got them come backwards and forwards. Now, let's say you're in the garden. Now, the next thing, you want the dog to make it a bit more interesting. So if you're able to, leave your back door open, and if it's enclosed and the dog can go in the garden, let the dog go in the garden. You go indoors. Now you call the dog back from outside. It can't see you now. So now it's not only got to come, it's got to find you as well. So that's even more fun for the dog. So the dog comes, you make a big fuss, and away you go.
And you can do that out on walks as well.
Well, I'll progress to that. There's a structure. Right. So now you've got the dog coming to your voice. Good. But we also want the dog to come to signal as well. Now, the best signal, I learned this from Mike's, he just did it. I learned this from Mike's grandfather. He used to be a Met Police dog handler for many years. He's trained a lot of dogs. Is you do that and that at distance. They can see it. So here's the thing. You only do this when the dog's coming. So you've got the dog coming from a little bit of a distance. As the dog is already approaching you, do that. Okay. And the dog will link the two together. So it'll know it also comes to voice, but actually, as it's coming and you do that, it knows that that means come as well. Okay. So it locks in. So you do that over the distance as well. And then the final thing to add in is a proper dog whistle. Okay. And the same principle, the dog is already coming from a distance. And as the dog approaches, you blow the whistle. And again, it's called chaining. So the dog now knows that the whistle means come as well. If you try and do any of this while the dog's going in the opposite direction, you're setting the dog up to fail. Okay? If you try and recall a dog when it's going in the opposite direction, when you're distraining it, 9 times out of 10 it'll keep going. So you reduce the effect a bit at all. So you've now got it coming to your voice, you've got it coming to the signal, and you've got it coming to the whistle. While you're doing this, make sure whenever the dog does come back, you make a huge fuss of it. Give it a treat when you're first doing it most times, and then you can break that up. So occasionally you'll give it a treat, occasionally you'll just make a big fuss of it, or give it its ball, or whatever. So he's never quite sure what's going to happen when I go back. So I think I better go back just to make sure, because I might get something nice. You never know. Right. So once you've got that, and you practice that at home, now we do it somewhere else. And the key to this is to repeat this. The same with all training, actually. The key to this is to repeat it wherever we are. So the next stage, take him to the park, maybe, where it's fenced in and enclosed. And you do the recall training there as well. Exactly the same. The short stuff, the signal, the voice, the whistle, repeat it in the field and at distance in that field. If you then walk the dog somewhere else, say in the woods, you repeat it there as well. The idea is that the behavior becomes normal pretty much wherever the dog is. In technical terms, it's called generalization. So the dog behaves in this way here, 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 and everywhere. And then the final thing is, we've mentioned this in a couple of these already, is you have to repeat this. You can't do this recall and say, wow, they're fantastic, got it nailed now, and then you tick it off your little spreadsheet. You don't do that anymore. You have to do it the whole of their lives. Okay? So when you're out walking, you still do the recall, but do it occasionally. So let's say you're out in the woods and your little dog's gone for a little run around in the undergrowth. Every now and again, you do a recall, and it locks into them. If you don't do that, they'll forget it. Simple as that. That's recall in a nutshell.
Well, that's good, and I think in a future episode we'll do some maybe next time we can talk about we'll talk about deference next time.
Yeah, deference and relaxation. Those two things combined, very important.
Yeah, of course. Okay, cool. Well, I think that's a good episode because I think we've covered getting a dog from a rescue centre, and we've talked a bit about recall. So I think that's a good couple of points for that, and that gives us about half an hour, which is a good amount to go on the YouTube. When topped and tailed.
You don't want to do it the full hour then, no?
Well, not this time because we don't see because I think we're at a time where I think we're competing with a lot of stuff this week. But I also think we've covered two good topics there. Unless you have any other topics you want to cover.
No, some of them will take a bit more. I'd like to in one episode of this talk about aggression and the different types of aggression and how we deal with aggression running right across the spectrum.
Well, how about we do that next week, and I will, if you remind me, I'll put a thing out on the Tuesday saying that we're doing that and try and solicit some questions from people specifically about their experiences with dogs and aggression, because I bet
I want to help people. I want to help people understand the types of aggression, what causes those types of aggression.
Well, yeah.
And how you deal with them.
What I'm saying is, if we get some questions, I bet you some of those questions relate directly to types of aggression. People won't realise, but
that's right.
You know,
no, they will. They will. You're right. You're right.
So okay, well we'll do that. That'll be good. Same time, same bat channel.
Okay.
And so this is remind people of what your Twitter is.
Twitter is at C Behaviourist, all lowercase.
And the
website
Facebook
is. Say again.
And the Facebook is the Canine Behaviourist.
The Canine Behaviourist, and the website is www.thecaninebehaviourist.co.uk. And if anybody has visited and any of this talk is good, buy me a coffee, keeps me going.
Yeah, you got one bought for you last week.
I did indeed, and I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Thank you very much, B. Curlin, who bought that coffee for you.
That's right, indeed. I thanked her by email.
Oh, very good. Yeah, so that was nice. Very much appreciated when people do that. I am, of course, at Broken Bottle Boy on Twitter, as I am here. Thank you for the 5 or 6 people who popped in today. I know we're kind of in a bit of a hectic news week.
You can send questions directly to us as well. Also, on my website, there's a Q&A section.
Yeah, that's really good, actually. It's very thorough with a lot of good stuff in there.
Well, the Q&A is fairly new, but you can ask your question on there, and I'll answer it directly on there. But I'll also, anything that's answered there, Mick and I might talk about it here as a discussion point as well.
Yeah, and I'll put that out on the Twitter when I do that next week. But yep, so we'll talk about aggression next week, and we'll make sure we solicit some questions beforehand as well. Thank you for tuning in, everyone who tuned in. Do tell other people about this. Encourage them to come along. If you know people who've got issues with their dog, or you think or you would like to do better with their dog, yeah, come along and chat to us.
Yep. Okay, Mike.
All right.
Good talking to you, bud.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.